We have made it to the halfway point, number 16 of 32, and it is the Washington Commanders as we finish off the NFC East here on bet.nolo.com, powered by the Dattitude Podcast. I am Jim Derry. Where you at, my friends? It is Friday already. Where did this week go? It flew by, just kind of like the Washington Commanders. They flew by. 8-1. They started off terrible last year, finished strong, and they got a new quarterback this year and a new offensive coordinator. Will it be enough for them to make the playoffs? Well, let's talk about it. Coming up next. Well, you made it through another intro. The next intro you watch, you'll be in the second half of these team previews. Going to the AFC East next week should be a lot of fun. But let's finish off the NFC East with these Washington Commanders. And, I would say that even though they finished fourth in the division, finished 8-1, were the only team in the division not to make the playoffs, I think some would have to say, in fact, almost everyone would say that the Commanders were quite a surprise, considering that I think most, if you looked, predicted 5 wins, 6 wins for this team. Their over-under win total, I believe, was 7 before the season last year, so they exceeded that. So any way you look at it, this Washington Commanders team was a pleasant surprise if you're a Commanders fan, not the way you wanted it to end. You went into the season, this year is kind of feeling very similar. I don't think there are too many people that expect this team to win a ton of games, and if you look and see the screen that their over-under win total is actually less than it was last year going into the year, 6.5, and you're getting juiced to the under. So going into last year, you had Carson Wentz as your quarterback. This year, you have Sam Howell as your quarterback. Does anyone think that Sam Howell is the future of these Washington Commanders? I mean, maybe some diehards do, and maybe Sam Howell's mama does, but that's probably about it. They didn't go sign Jacoby Brissett to a 1-year, $8 million deal because they think they need a good backup in case Sam Howell gets hurt. I mean, look, Eric Bieniemy, probably the biggest splash of a change at offensive coordinator that there is in this league. If for any other reason, then we're talking about Eric Bieniemy before we even talk about the head coach of the Commanders, Ron Rivera. Why? Because there's a decent chance that Eric Bieniemy was brought in by this new owner to be the next head coach of the Commanders. Very decent possibility. Why do you think he wanted to leave the Kansas City Chiefs and be an offensive coordinator for the Commanders? I'll give you a second to think about it. You done? Okay, well, let's move on and talk about what this team has and what they had last year. They did get some pleasant surprises last year, though, and it starts with running back Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson, a kid that was shot in the offseason. Looked like he was going to be this promising rookie. And the first words when you find out he got shot and how bad it was, I mean, no one could have expected him to come back. Well, not only did he come back, but he was back in week 5 and came back and started the rest of the season and gained almost 800 yards, became the top tailback for this Commanders team, knocked Antonio Gibson out of the ranks. What happened to Antonio Gibson? Well, he's still there, but he's no longer the primary back. One thing Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy definitely have is a solid core of receivers. Anyone who's paid attention knows that Terry McLaurin has become one of the top receivers in the National Football League. And last year, he had almost 1,200 receiving yards. Kind of nothing new for this guy. He just keeps on doing it. I think he had 5 or 6 touchdowns. And so he's not keen to get in the end zone a whole ton. So he may not be the best fantasy receiver on the planet, but man, talk about solid. That's all he is. And they try to double team him, and he still makes catches. He was targeted, I think, 120 times last year. And the Commanders also had a nice compliment to McLaurin with rookie Jahan Dotson. And you think he's got to only be able to go higher this year. He had 35 catches last year. He had 7 touchdowns. I think both of those numbers get a little bit higher this year. We'll have to wait and see. You have to worry about their tight end position. Logan Thomas is fine, but when he's healthy. Already he's got a little red Q next to his name. misses a lot of time. So they have some issues at tight end, the Commanders, and so that's what Sam Howell is going to be dealing with, or maybe it'll be Jacoby Brissett. We'll find out. The offensive line is revamped. They have a new right tackle in the form of Andrew Wiley, who they got from Kansas City, signed a 3-year, $24 million contract, but they needed help. They were roughshod on that offensive line last year. They've made some changes. Not only do they have Andrew Wiley, but they also have Nick Gates they brought over for the New York Giants. And Gates will move he played guard for the Giants and now will become a center for the Washington Commanders. And he gets a 3-year, $16.5 million deal. That being said, anywhere you look, offensive line rankings, the Commanders are in the bottom 8, some places the bottom 4 or 5. They're going to have to surprise because Sam Howell can't be running for his life, and Brian Robinson is going to have to get find some holes and be able to score. Look, last year, even though he rushed for 800 yards, didn't have a lot of breakaways. He only had 2 touchdowns running the football last year. That's got to improve greatly for this team to be any better. The defensive side of the ball, you see the numbers on the screen. The Commanders were great. They were 4th against the pass. They were 3rd overall, and that was without Chase Young from just about all of the season. He only played 3 games last year trying to come back from that ACL injury. Already he's a little banged up. How banged up is he? Well, it's kind of like all these other injuries that we see in the preseason. Some of them aren't that bad. Some of them linger into the regular season. For Chase Young, he's only played 27 games since being the 2nd overall pick of the 2020 draft. 27 games. That is not even 2 full seasons. So, I mean, again, coming back last year, they kept saying he was going to come back, and he didn't. They have to have him this year. They have to be able to have a pass rush. They have to be able to get to Dak Prescott. They have to be able to get to Jalen Hurts, and they have to be able to stop other teams' running game. Let's look at their schedule and see what we have here. And right off the bat, the 7th toughest schedule in the NFL. 7th toughest in the NFL. They've already got issues, and I can tell you right off, if this team wants to have any chance to improve off of 8-1 and get to the playoffs, it's got to start fast. I mean, to me, most of their wins are all before the November 12th game at Seattle. You better be, the toughest parts is obviously you play Buffalo and you play Philadelphia twice. But other than that, Arizona, at Denver, Chicago, Atlanta, Giants, New England, they have to win almost all those games to me to have a chance. Why? Because look at the second half. It gets much tougher. At Seattle and the Giants, okay, those are winnable games. But to me, after that, at Dallas, playing Miami before a really, really late bye week in Week 14, at the Rams, at the Jets, San Francisco, and Dallas, that is a brutal final 3 games of a stretch. Can the Commanders get through that and find a way to win 9 or 10 games? Because really, maybe if they win 9 games, they might get in. 10 games almost certainly gets them in. It's not going to be enough to win the division. I don't think they have any chance to win the division. Let's look. Drum roll, please. Let's bring it up. 6-11. I just, 3rd in the NFC East. I think they'll be better than the Giants. It puts them right under that number of over 6.5. But to me, there is no best bet for this team. It's the best bet that I could find is the over 6.5. Because I'm certainly not betting any of the other numbers. Again, let's go back real quick and show you these numbers in case you weren't paying attention before. Division title plus 13, 13-1. They play this out 13 times. You think they win the division once? I don't. Conference title plus 4,000, Super Bowl title plus 8,000. I can think of better values anywhere elsewhere. So I just don't see it. I'm not betting anything on this team. So let's move on. We thank you for joining us for the first half of these previews. We will start the second half on Tuesday with the Buffalo Bills in the AFC East. We hope you can join us.